Hey everybody, and welcome to Indie Film Cafe's Criterion Watch.
Criterion Watch.
I'm Roll Pal the Moo Cow, aka Presenza, and I'm joined by
Jonathan Moody, your co-host.
And today we have gathered in the studio to watch the classic 1963 thriller from Samuel Fuller, Shock Corridor.
Shock Corridor.
One of my favorites.
This is the Criterion. Is this the Blu-ray or DVD?
This is the DVD.
Wow.
They never put out a Blu-ray of that, unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think somebody else did the Blu-ray. But Criterion did the DVD. In fact, it's one of the first DVDs that I bought from Criterion. I've always been a big Samuel Fuller fan. And
Is this like a film noir or something?
It's definitely got film noir mixed into it.
Okay.
It's got a lot of stuff mixed into it. And Sam Fuller was one of those guys who was not afraid to stick his finger in the eye of Hollywood, and he always kind of liked to make waves. And this is a movie that made waves, famously. Good. So
I'm interested.
You've never seen it?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I've heard of it, like I heard the name, and I think it's because I was perusing Criterion's, thing, and I just never noticed that. Never went to Blu-ray.
So yeah, in fact, both Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino both love Sam Fuller. So there you go.
All right. Well,
so
this will be my first Fuller.
We will be back, and after the flip side, right?
Oh, all right.
We'll see you soon. Bye. We are back.
We're back. Yeah.
Shock Corridor. What did you think? That was your first time seeing it, right?
Shock Corridor. We have the DVD of it. I liked it.
Yeah.
But I there hasn't been a Criterion film that you picked that I said, that sucked. So this was good. This was
they're usually pretty darn good movies. That's why they're on there.
Right. They're supposed to be the creme de la creme, but then they put on some people may think The Breakfast Club is a great movie, but I don't think it's like the creme de la creme. I think it's a good movie. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I love, but is it really should it really be Criterion? Probably not, but
nope.
But
this is, and yeah, it's very, very good.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is one of those things where because Sam Fuller was more of an independent guy later on, he had trouble financing a lot of his films because, of course, like I said, he liked to poke his finger in the eye of Hollywood. So, and he didn't like working with movie stars. He didn't like egos getting in the way, and he didn't like the audience not being able to overcome the fact that they're looking at a movie star versus a very good actor whom they don't know, they've never really seen before.
Right.
Who can just sink themselves into the roles. You notice every single performance in that was really, really good. But they're all people who, they're like, I don't know, if you knew New York theater at the time and you knew like independent theater at the time, you'd know them. But other than that,
like Orson Welles type stuff or whatever, like his company, like the Mercury Theater and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're folks that he ended up, because he did so many movies over the 50s and 60s, westerns and crime movies and stuff, he was able to pick up and find and get relationships with people that he knew were good. Same thing with the cinematography and same thing with all the other folks, and he was able to get a lot of these people to work on these projects even though they didn't really have a lot of money. So, and he was really, really good. He's kind of from that Roger Corman school of doing the most he can with a little bit of money. So stuff like the fact that there's no exterior shot in this film, it serves two purposes. On the one hand, you don't have to spend money on a B-roll guy to go out and capture that, or spend money on stock footage. But at the same time, it also produces that level of claustrophobia because you're always inside.
But there was exterior shots, but they were all stock footage.
They were stock footage, yeah.
And they were all on color.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. I thought it was kind of neat.
And that was a little bit, I always wondered about that. I should really go through the supplementals because I don't know if they address it or not, but My feeling is that they were used because that's what they could get, or that was there,
right?
And they kind of tailored
because
the story.
One of them didn't even make any sense for what the guy was talking about when he was talking about his father and all this other stuff. All of a sudden, we see like some old African tribe doing stuff, and everything, which is fine, I guess, because it was like, I feel like when they were editing it together, they're like, oh, we don't have anything for this. And
what do we have? We have this.
We have this. Right, and then he's just like, all right, well, he's black, so, African tribe, that works, I guess. I don't know. There was some racial stuff in the movie. There was some, there was some sexual stuff in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
There was a...
Remember, this is 1963. There was a lot of shit going on in that time, part of the 60s. And this movie does not shy away from any of it. And if anything, he stands up with a bullhorn and just shouts it out. The whole us against them communism thing, everything about the fear of nuclear war, all the racial stuff, all the segregation stuff,
even the mental health stuff. Which back then I don't think was really as talked about, because it was sort of like you were embarrassed or ashamed if you had to go there, or if you knew people who went there, or whatever, that kind of thing. Nowadays, because of the internet and because of people having a voice more than they used to have, like we can go on Facebook and we can say whatever. People's mental health is more prevalent and stuff, and more talked about.
It's also kind of done in sort of a very pulpy, sketchy 42nd Street kind of way, and which is also done on purpose, because this is right around the time that all the nudie cuties started to come out, and all of the where they independent movies were starting to get away from the Hollywood stuff and starting to do things that were pushing the envelope with violence and nudity and sexual stuff.
This was before Night of the Living Dead, though, right?
Yes.
So it was before like a horror really
caught up to that. Yeah.
Caught up to that, but it was more.
But Herschel Gordon Lewis was doing stuff like this.
That's true. He was doing the gore stuff, but this wasn't gory or anything.
No,
this wasn't a horror.
This is more of a psychological thriller.
Yeah. So I guess we'll talk about the story, which is pretty. That'll take up probably the majority of the time anyway, because there'll be a lot to discuss. But it's basically about a guy named Johnny. Was it Johnny? And he's
like the everyman.
John Bennett, I think is his name. And he was but he was a journalist, and he had figured out that there was a murder inside the mental hospital, and but nobody could solve the case.
There were 3 witnesses.
But there were 3 witnesses, so he knew all the information, including like who everybody was, everybody was, period, including the guards and people, and he wanted to find out who, which person, knew.
And it's interesting because, again, very big difference between then and now. Today, if something like that were to happen, there would be investigation upon investigation upon investigation, where here it's more like, well, the cops couldn't figure it out, so they just left it alone.
Right. So that's why the journalist has to go in and crack it or whatever. And he knew if he cracked that case, he would win like a Pulitzer.
Right.
Because he would be the person who did something that cops couldn't even do.
Right.
Or whatever. So he ends up. So the beginning of the movie very confused me, because the opening scene is them going over what he's gonna say to the people there to get them to like let him in.
Right, you're thrown in kind of cold without knowing
anything. So when like his girlfriend, who's supposed to be playing his sister, says they're not even gonna, what if they find out we're not even related? I was like, wait, what? Like, a little confused, but I was like, all right, just go with it. Just go with it. Go, let it. You'll figure it out. I mean, I'm sure it explains stuff, and then it does. You basically find out he's trying to use his girlfriend's claim, have him get committed by her as his sister, and then basically say there was an incestual thing going on. Like he wanted to be with the sister.
A violent, incestuous sort of obsession.
And then so he ends up getting first of all he has to convince her, and she
didn't want to do it. I had nothing to do with it.
And she did not want anything. She didn't want to see him.
Turns out she was right.
Yeah, she shouldn't. You know what? She should have just let him not call her or talk to her anymore. She should have just let him be. But she loved him so much. But she kept saying, no, I don't want to do this. No, this is bad. And he kept trying to convince her, but no good. And she said, sorry, I gotta go.
It's kind of not fair because he always keeps throwing that shit back on her when he's like, oh, well, I let you go up there and sing at that burlesque show and I don't complain. I'm like, dude, that is not the same thing. Stop throwing that at her.
Yeah, that's not the same thing as you going and getting yourself committed for months or whatever it's going to take for you to crack this thing, because it's not like he can go in there, crack the case, and walk out.
Right.
It's going to take some time.
And that's the difference between the two of them, because she says, I'm doing all of that shit because I make a lot more money so that we can have a good future. I'm doing it for you and for us. He's doing that for him.
For himself.
He wants to, it's not just because he wants to find out who's going on. He wants the prize so he can be the big newspaper
Well, guy. I mean, in a way it also helps them get a little bit more rich so he can provide for her. But with that being said, I don't think he's thinking about that necessarily. No. He's thinking about the fame and the notoriety of being whatever, being a Pulitzer Prize winning thing. And he doesn't realize the cost of what's going to happen.
Right. And you get the feeling that while she's crazy about him, he does love her, but not as much.
Not as much
as fame and getting that Pulitzer.
That's all he cares about, really. So she does. She goes to work, and she can't take it anymore because he's not calling her, not talking to her, leaves her alone for 4 days, and she's lonely, which doesn't make any sense to me because she's gonna be even more lonely anyway. So I mean, I guess she thinks in the long run I'll have him, and if I don't go through with this,
remember,
I may lose him.
1963 was different. Today everybody ghosts each other back and forth, and it's no big deal. There's social media, and there's all kinds of other ways to get in touch with people. Back then, you don't call someone, it's like you're gone for months.
Or show up at their house or whatever it is. So anyway, so she goes to his boss and says, fine, I'll do it, and so she goes to the cop and explains, and I was asking Paul earlier because I wasn't aware that you could just go and turn someone in like that, like through the cops, like go up and say, this person is her.
Back then,
I don't know if it's as much now. I think you'd have to have real, like, big proof, and you'd have to... There's a lot more to it.
I think these days the best you can possibly do is 48 hours or 72 hours, and that's it.
And that's all on them, right? They have to check themselves in, sort of thing. I don't. The only thing I think you can get committed for is harming yourself
and very involuntary committal is very different.
Yeah, you'd have to prove that you're gonna.
And I'm not sure it's better. Because there's a lot of people out on the streets who really should not be there. And it's partly because there's no law to get them in there until they do something where the cops come in.
I'm sorry, but like the dude that tried to shoot Reagan kind of deserved to be in a mental hospital over that stuff. Yeah,
should have been there before that.
Yeah, exactly. But, but then there's some people that are in that mental hospital probably don't deserve it,
It's the difference between being proactive and doing something before it happens versus it's cheaper to just clean up the mess later on.
Right. So anyway, the cop, whatever does what they need to do, and they have like a little preliminary chat with him, and that was what the beginning was about, was trying to make sure that he knew his backstory, and it was about braids and how he didn't like pulling on the braids, he liked caressing the braids, and it was creepy, man. Like, just to think about that stuff, like, you have to be like a writer to think, what could I say like that? It's just so gross. And then so they did that.
So he gets himself in, and then he starts meeting all these wackadoodle people because he's got to figure out how to get to the 3 witnesses. And first thing he does, he meets his roommates, and the one's the big fat guy who thinks he's Pagliacci, and he thinks he's a famous opera
Nowadays
singer.
it would be like Pavarotti or something.
Something
you
like
know?
that.
Yeah.
No, nowadays it'd be some rap star.
Oh, right, yeah. Nowadays.
I think
Must
I'm
be
Kanye.
ludicrous. You are ludicrous, but you're not ludicrous.
Right.
If you know what I mean. So he goes up and he says, so the guy thinks he's an opera singer. There's another guy that sleeps like this. Like, I don't know what.
Another guy has always got his arm
up because he's catatonic, I guess, and in a catatonic state. Even when he puts his hand up, he just eventually just puts it back down.
Which is an interesting little foreshadowing.
Yep, I didn't see that coming.
That's what she said.
Yeah. So then she said. So then they go in there and they're, he's trying to figure it out. He's trying to find the 3 people who were there, and the first one he comes up to is like thinks he's in the military, I guess, or something. He's like
He was in the military.
He was in the military.
He was a Korean War vet who goes over there and gets captured, and then ends up being switches over to being a communist. And
he looked like a cowboy at first. Like I thought he was a cowboy.
His delusion is that he's still a Confederate soldier, and he's J.E.B. Stewart.
Yeah. So the other guy, at first he comes to sit down to talk to him, but he's told by the staff that you can't sit there, that you have to sit over at this table. Like, I guess they have assigned seats or something, because he had to sit there and stuff, and he didn't know. Like, so he just sat down with his pals, and then there's like this big kind of fight that breaks out, kind of thing, like craziness that breaks out, and he uses it to sneak away and talk to the other guy, and then start convincing him he was he was his commander in the army and everything. And so they have this little thing go, which was cute. I liked it. And then eventually he uses that as a way to just kind of connect with the guy, so that later he can start
and try to get information.
Pump information out of him. And he does. He starts kind of trying to get. He was able to get one clue out of him before chaos.
White pants.
White pants.
So the guy knew it wasn't any of the people who were committed. It was either a doctor or it was an orderly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a doctor or an orderly. However, the show throws us off later. The movie throws us off later when the black guy, who is crazy too, says there wasn't an orderly. It was a patient. Which, didn't he say that? He said that.
No, he kept thinking it was a doctor. He says it wasn't a doctor, it was an orderly.
Oh, okay. I thought he said it was a patient.
No, he said it was an orderly.
Okay, so it was an orderly. So.
But before that, remember, just before he gets to that guy, he walks into the wrong room. Mm-hmm. The nymphomaniac room.
Which he was kind of told about earlier.
Yeah.
So it's kind of foreshadowing, like, he said, like, apparently the guy... one of the orderlies had to leave because had to get out of there because he was temptation or something of the nympho room or whatever and stuff, and so he just walks into the wrong room and then attacked, and it was so weird because
I know. It's not really nymphomania that they were showing. It's more like just straight up violence.
I know, but like the one woman was singing.
I like coffee, I like tea, I like men who like me, or something like that.
Yeah, and then the other one started singing something else, too. Like, there were two songs.
My body lies over the ocean.
Yeah, my body lies over the sea.
Well, it's supposed to be body, but your body is what she was saying.
I thought she said body at first, but then I thought her Bonnie. I don't know, because I thought it was my body lies over the ocean.
It's supposed to be.
But, anyway, so they do that, and then... they're singing that while the girls just jump on him.
This one's mine. This one's mine.
And they start jumping on him.
He's my boyfriend.
scratching it.
Oh yeah, and he gets fucked up.
Yeah, scratching and clawing.
So by the time he finds the black dude, he's got like all these horrible bandages on because they've been scratching him and biting him and tearing him apart. Like,
yeah,
that was rough.
Yeah. So then he.
You think if you go into the nymphomaniac room, it would be a fun experience? Oh no.
No, the nympho room is not fun. Don't go. Don't go in those doors.
Nope.
So then he goes and he's chatting with what is it? He's chatting with the black guy, and all of a sudden the black guy, because the black guy apparently has a history of stealing pillowcases.
Right. And why is he stealing pillowcases?
Why is he stealing pillowcases? Like, that's what I kind of wanted to know, right? And why would somebody want, as souvenirs, what, and then you find out that this dude thinks he's part of the KKK and stuff. So he has he's the Grand Poobah.
And you see him walking around with a sign like "Go Home Niggers," and just awful shit that he's spouting out. Because that's all the shit that he's been subjected to his entire life.
And it drove him crazy, I guess, to the point where he actually thinks he's the one saying all this stuff. And so he's leading this, he's talking whatever, he's got to get everybody riled up, and doing everything.
How'd you like to be the actor doing those lines?
It's got to be a little weird.
That's rough, man.
It's got to be weird because you're playing a part, right? You're playing the actor who's got to pretend you're completely someone else, like a white KKK member, and yet you have to say these things which are things that people have said.
Super inflammatory stuff.
Yeah, things that people have said and did and acted up, and then you have to pretend.
Yeah, and like I said, even today, a lot of that language, I don't know that Hollywood would touch with a 10-foot pole, much less
the N-word. The
1963.
N-word is very, 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 not a cool word to say. And in fact, I never say it. I think the only time I would ever say it is if I literally had to say what somebody else said.
Right.
But really, I don't even, I won't say that. It's like one of the only words that I won't ever, utter out of my mouth, because not only is it just a racial nasty-ass word, it's a word that I truly don't believe in. I truly don't like it. I think it's the worst. I don't even like it when, and I get it, if another black guy says it to another black guy, whatever, you know what I mean? But I still don't like hearing it.
In 1963, remember, this was the era of civil rights. So there was a lot of racial tension going on out there. So to have this sort of thrown out is like Fuller is saying, this is part of America. Mm. This is what these folks have to go through, and this is the result. And, so he's kind of showing a mirror to America about America, and the crazy shit that these folks got themselves put away for is partially because of the society that we live in. Mm-hmm. It's really, really well done, but man, is it inflammatory.
Yep.
Really rough. There's no way I would do that.
No, I wouldn't.
Not brave enough.
I couldn't write that stuff. Just because, so to give an example of a newer situation, kind of thing, Tarantino got a lot of flack for having a black guy say the N-word, all the time, right? Samuel L. Jackson. Spike Lee told him he wasn't allowed as a white person to write that word. Now, do I believe that's true or not? No, I don't. I think if you are writing it for somebody to say, even if it were something like he was writing a movie about the 60s or something, or 50s or whatever, and somebody said that word to somebody else, that's history. That's part of how the culture was.
It's what that character at that time would have said.
Yes, exactly. Would it have been a nice thing for somebody to write or whatever? No, but for him to write for black people is fine because, well, A, he was actually grown up with black people, but B, he is, allowed as a writer to explore that kind of
he
stuff.
gets shit all the time, especially with violence. They're always, why
Which is
are your
weird.
movies so violent?
Everybody is violent.
It makes for good cinema. That's why.
Why didn't anybody ever get mad at John Carpenter
Right.
for writing, for doing violence? Why does everyone attack him for it? I think it's because it's so easy to attack the guy.
Because he is one of the guys who is potentially Oscar worthy. That's why.
Right.
That's so.
Because you want to yell at the guy that's basically, killing it in the business in Hollywood and stuff, rather than the person who you don't see much anymore.
It's bullshit. It really is. But I get it. But even Tarantino stuff, nothing like this.
But you said before that Tarantino and
Martin Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese he said that this movie is up there or whatever.
Yeah, they were big Sam Fuller fans.
Yeah, well, they know, Tarantino especially. I mean, he's got a theater at his house with lots of freaking movies and stuff.
And I don't know if you know, some of Sam Fuller's later films are a little bit more well known. Like he did, and if you ever saw a World War II movie called The Big Red One.
I've heard of it.
He did that one. Unfortunately, that's one of those movies that somebody else ended up sticking their hands in and sort of ruining on him. He also did a movie that was also very controversial called White Dog, and it was, of all people, Christy McNichol, who I had the biggest crush on as a kid. She starred in it, and she stars as an animal trainer person who's got this dog that was trained to attack and kill black people, and she's got to untrain it to do that, which is a horrible thing, and it's just an awful subject matter. But that's the kind of stuff that he will do.
That's what you want to explore, the reality of really depraved and messed up things that existed at that time and stuff. And I get it, because if nobody else is going to touch it, somebody's got it.
Right. And he could have stayed in his career as a studio guy making westerns and making cop movies and all that, but
he didn't want to.
He didn't want to do that. He wanted to make his own movies, and that's you got to tip your hat to him.
Yeah, I mean, you look at my favorite director, Alfred Hitchcock, and you look at the stuff that he did. He always stayed in the studio. He didn't like some of the stuff when studios poked around and told him what to do. He hated it because he wanted to be able to be in control.
And even with a lower budget, he's still able to do some interesting stuff. Like, I love the little juxtapositions where she's in his conscience and you get to see her.
Yeah, she looked like a fairy or something.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then that famous quote-unquote hurricane scene where he's in the corridor and it's just...
And it's raining
Oh my
down,
God, and that's the storm of his mind.
Yeah.
That was really well done.
So we find out the white pants, and we find out later that it was an orderly. So
Wilkes.
Yeah, well, he didn't find out Wilkes yet, but he needed a name.
Yeah,
he needed to figure out a name. So there's one guy left of the people, and then he finds. So the one guy is he was an atom bomb guy. He did a physicist. He did atom bomb, and it just drove him nuts. I mean, trying to solve all these equations and doing all these things.
Well, and I think the guilt of being involved with an atom bomb and nuclear weapons.
Yeah, it made him crazy.
He just didn't want to deal with it anymore, and so he became like a little kid in his mind.
Yeah, he became a kid. So the guy knew that, of him, and he said, they'd like to play games with me. Do you want to play a game? He's like, sure. It's like hide and go seek. And he count to 10 and I'll hide. And he's a kid. He's a 6-year-old kid. So what's a 6-year-old kid gonna do? Well, he's not. He's an adult, but he's pretending to be a 6-year-old
hides
kid.
in the very first place.
Yeah, the very first place. And of course the guy he knows where he is, but he pretends like he doesn't, just to keep the guy, keep the guy going. And then he finds out he can draw pretty well and everything, and he did a good job. Meanwhile, I think maybe before or after, I think it was before, the girlfriend had come by to visit, and everything. Kathy had come by to visit and stuff, and they're supposed to be brother and sister. So they're talking for a little bit, and he's explaining, I've getting very close. I'm gonna crack this case. It's gonna be so great. Everything's gonna be amazing. And she's so excited that she gives him a kiss on the lips.
Yeah, he wigs out.
And he wigs out on her and says, "Get out of here! Stop that!" And I thought,
but why? Because the thing is he during all this, he's getting subjected to crazier and crazier shit, and it's starting to affect him.
I swear to God, he was fine then. I think he was saying it because he thought that that if the doctors saw that going on, they would suspect something of the thing. So he didn't want her to kiss him right there and blow the cover. That's what I think. You might think that she thinks, and you probably thought that he was going a little crazy and thought that they were actually brother and sister.
Probably both. I think it's a little bit of both. I think that's the point where
like
he's
kind of go in the middle.
Yeah.
Maybe. So she thinks that, and she's trying to get him out, like get him out of there. They're driving him a little nuts, and we don't want him to be nuts. We want him to figure out who killed the person. That's it. But like, get him out of there. And they're of course like, if you get him out of there right now, while he's this close to solving the case, he's gonna resent you, and he's gonna be upset.
He's gonna hold against you.
Yeah, and he's gonna have this regret of not being able to freaking do it when he was that close. You just gotta let him do it, and then get him out or whatever. So, anywho, later she signs him up for shock therapy. You know, and the shock therapy.
I guess because she can't come up with a compelling reason not to, because he's been fighting pretty much throughout the whole thing. Whether it's because he's going along with it or because it's starting to affect him, we're not really sure. But she kind of has to play along too without blowing his cover, so she sort of has to agree with it. Because again, he's been showing all these violent tendencies, and that's the other thing too, is that you get the feeling that was done more out of punishment than therapy. You know, and that's terrible. I mean, that's
awful.
So bad. People had to go through that.
Yep. So yeah, that I was singing that song from Ramones. Give me shock treatment.
Yeah, you don't want that.
You don't want that.
I don't think they do that anymore.
I hope not.
Or if they do, it's extremely targeted. It's very different.
Right. But they were afraid that if he got the shock treatment, that he would.
Or lobotomies, I think they don't do anymore.
Yeah. They thought that maybe if that happened, he would crack, and he would tell them who actually he is, and she wanted that. She wanted him to just rat on himself so that they could get him out of there, because she didn't care whatever the consequences for that. She would happily rather have him out of there she'd rather have him in jail.
She cares about him. She'd
rather have him in jail than have him there. So, going crazy and everything. So, he survives the shock treatment, but in the beginning he can't.
Or does he? I think that's kind of the thing. I think he gets much worse after the shock treatment.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he starts forgetting stuff. He can't talk.
He can't talk. And so he's trying to talk, and he can't. And he's just, talking to himself, and, why can't I talk?
So there's a lot of voiceover, because we hear his internal dialogue where he's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And that's kind of throughout the whole film, too.
That's what gives me the film noir.
Yeah. Usually I'm not a big fan of that, but you can understand why it's used here.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in there, but it works really well.
Worked really well.
For this movie. Now, not saying it would work for every movie like that or whatever,
right.
But this one was fine. So he does talk again, and he's like, okay, I got my stuff back, and the guy
who stabbed Wilkes in the kitchen.
The doctor asks him, what happened there? Are you okay? And I'm kind of sad he didn't tell him. I couldn't. For a bit I couldn't talk, or whatever, because obviously that meant there's some side effect from the shock treatment. But I guess he didn't want to tell him.
I don't think he could. I think that was a side effect.
Well, no. But he didn't want to tell him that he couldn't talk. He didn't tell the doctor that.
Oh,
so I'm wondering why he didn't tell the doctor. because the doctor asked him, "Are you sure?" Blah blah blah. And he's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." So I wonder if there was something more deeper down there that he didn't want to share that with them for fear of him getting more shock treatment. Maybe
either that, or if I recall, at that point he'd forgotten who it was.
So maybe he forgot that.
And there were two other orderlies there, so he didn't want to name them. Or
no, that was before then, because he hadn't heard the name yet. He actually got the shock treatment before he got the name of the guy, because that's my favorite part. Is he got the shock treatment. He started to. He went to talk to the one guy that was drawing him, right? And he had done a great job drawing him before, apparently. And then he was drawing him, and he wanted to talk to him. All of a sudden, he lost the voice, and he was like, "Oh no, don't lose the voice now!"
Right.
And he kept moving around and kept talking to himself, trying to, who shot Wilkes in the kitchen? Who shot Wilkes stabbed Wilkes in the kitchen? That shit is.
But then that's when he wigs out, right? That's also when he. That's not me. That's not me.
That was after he finally got the answer. Wilkes, right? He got the answer. Wilkes. He goes, Wilkes. Oh, that's great. Oh my God, everything's great. And then he shows him the picture, and he goes, "Wait, what was that?" He's like, "That's you." He's like, "That's not me."
And he flips out. Like you wouldn't believe flipped out. That was amazing. There's a lot of really good physical acting that's done.
Yeah, physical fights.
That scene was really great. And then when the confrontation with Wilkes in the kitchen happened, again, that was a huge set piece fight where they used the whole damn place.
And they're throwing each other. And there's at one point he threw him down the table, like as in like the bar of a saloon,
a Western,
the Western.
That was great.
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic. It was like Sam Fuller had become like immersed in all his projects. It was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Western. I'm gonna do it.
It was all of a sudden the Hal Needham project. The stunt guy who became a director, and he was wearing that hat. And they went through all these great fight stunts. It was really, really well done.
It was fantastic. I loved it. I had a fun time watching them fight. They were fist fighting. You hear boom, pow, whatever.
And the lead actor was just as good in doing that part as he was doing the psychological parts.
Yeah. So he had a lot of fun. I told you I thought he looked a lot like Anthony Perkins, the lead actor. I was like, oh, is that Anthony Perkins? Like, nope. And it was some other guy. What's his name?
I forget now.
Steven something or
Stephen Best, I think it is.
Yeah, Stephen Best. Yeah. So anyway, he goes up and he says, like he gets pulled off of Wilkes or whatever, right? Actually, wait, was it? Yeah, it was that scene that he got pulled off of Wilkes, and he was like, whatever. He, Wilkes is the murderer, like, right, and all this stuff, and I know who killed what's the guy? Sloan. I know who killed Sloan. I kept saying Wilkes in the kitchen or whatever. I meant Sloan. Who killed Sloan? And so they finally got him apart from everything, and he he's basically asked, so because it kind of drug him up a little bit, or whatever, and they ask him, so who did whatever. Couldn't remember anything after that.
Who's the hell Sloan?
Yeah, who's the hell Sloan? And then he's like, wait a minute, they're trying to ask me these questions. Like he's talking to himself. It's like, wait, I know the answer, but wait, which one? And I can't say it right now because the two orderlies are here. If I say one of them, they're gonna, right? So he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to say, and he ends up kind of being told, just let it go, let the Sloan thing go, and stuff. He even tells them he's a plant,
right,
and stuff.
Right.
Go talk to my boss at the paper. He'll tell you everything, and whatever. So, they don't trust it. Whatever. They don't believe him and everything, and they kind of set him next to the opera guy, And the opera guy starts talking to him, and he starts feeling rain. And this is where he goes insane again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he thinks that he's being rained on. And, like, all this stuff's happening.
This horrible storm in the corridor, the shock corridor.
Yeah. And everything's just driving and falling down on him. They call it the street, I guess, because everybody hangs out in the street. You know,
everyone who behaves hangs out in the street.
Right, yeah. And so, even the guy that's, like, over the bed, he's now over a...
Yeah, that was great. He was that the entire time. It was so funny.
Wouldn't that be fun to play that role? And
yeah.
You're like, I don't know, you're basically like a glorified extra because you have no lines. But you're just like...
But you're going to be remembered.
You're going to be remembered for that scene.
That was funny.
That's great. So then, yeah, there's other people. There's, like, one dude doing, like, some kind of dance thing or something in the hall, and all this other stuff happening. But then all of a sudden, when it's, like, raining and everything, everybody's gone, and he thinks he's by himself, and all this stuff's happening, and he's freaking out and screaming on the top of his lungs. And then he comes back to snap into reality.
Mm-hmm.
And the opera guy looks over and is like, oh, wrong note. Your wrong note you're doing.
But he's becoming like them, where
right.
like they're nuts most of the time, but then they have these moments of lucidity where they're able to actually talk about stuff.
Which makes you wonder, were they ever really nuts to begin with? Were they? Because if they have those lucid moments, maybe they weren't, but maybe this drove them that crazy. Being there.
Well,
whatever, I don't know.
You got the feeling these people were being housed as opposed to being treated and helped. You know what I mean? It's like they are put there to just be away from society and not to harm themselves or anybody else, but not really to be, rehabilitated.
Rehabilitated. They're not going to go. They're not going to leave anytime soon.
That's a one-way street, it seems.
Street. Because of the street.
Right.
But anyway, we get back to the street and everything. Everybody's back to doing everything. And then it snaps in his head. He knows who did it. Wilkes did it. Right? So he goes and tells... Oh, I guess that was the fight. Mm-hmm. Was when he goes and tells them that Wilkes... or whatever that Wilkes
did.
They
don't believe him at first.
Yeah, they don't believe him. So he goes and fights Wilkes. And then he goes and finally gets on top of Wilkes. Nobody can do it. And he's like just banging him in the head. Doing all this stuff and saying, "Who killed Sloan? Who killed Sloan?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "I killed Sloan," just to get him off of him.
Right.
And everything like that. And everybody's around him. And it seems like, well, fine. He did it. He did everything he wanted. It's got to be a happy ending after that, right? Nah. We get back.
Just like the nymphomaniac room.
Yeah.
No, it's not a happy ending.
Not a happy ending. Would he want a happy ending there? I don't know. The way that they were acting with clawing and scratching and other things.
Yeah, he ends up where he's catatonic at the end, and that's my only little thing with that is that I'm not 100% buying that.
Yeah, I don't think he would have got catatonic after that.
Might have gotten manic.
I think what I would have loved to see, and especially like if they redid something like this, like now, that he would be like normal, and then have bits of craziness because like the residual craziness in his life.
He'd be haunted by the experience, and he'd have to have treatment to sort of deal with it. But I don't buy therapy. The catatonic.
And I don't buy that he would need to stay there. I think he would. Like he wouldn't come back.
So that's my only issue with the film.
Yeah, really.
But,
I mean, but it's an ending. It's an ending.
It's a dramatic ending.
Yeah, it's a dramatic ending that you're gonna be like, I don't ever want to do that.
Right.
But I would have wanted to do that anyway, because like even if I wanted to write a movie about being in a in an insane asylum, I'd probably go to the guards.
Some prices are not worth paying.
Now, if I wanted to solve a mystery that involved in there, I wouldn't do it. I'm sorry. Like, it's not my...
Well, and that's the other thing, too. I would buy that a little bit more if it had been somebody who was related to me. If this had been my brother or my sister. You know what I mean?
But
and I needed to know what happened, and the cops didn't do a good enough job.
But remember,
then I'm willing to put my life and my sanity on the line.
We saw that already in like movies, and one of the biggest ones recently that we watched is The Halfway House, where the girl like checks herself into a halfway house just because her sister was in that halfway house or whatever like that, and she's trying to figure out who killed her, what happened to her sister, and things like that. So it's been done. So I think.
But remember, 1963.
I don't know it had been done then yet. You're right. It could have been. That he could have been the one who started the trend. I don't know, but it was pretty neat that he checked himself in, and then. But it wasn't a brother or sister. It was just a random person that you heard about, and nobody could solve the case. So let me solve the case. And I thought it was a pretty. Neat.
And I get it because then it's not. You could understand his sort of obsession with it a little bit more. Whereas now it's just all about getting the Pulitzer Prize, the fame.
Yeah, it wasn't anything personal except the fame was a bit personal, I guess.
Right.
You know? But aside from that, that wasn't really the big thing. So I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was a really well done, well put together movie. Kind of sucks for his girlfriend. She got the worst end of it. Like I said, she should have just said, if she didn't do it, somebody else would have. Like he would have found another woman.
Would have found another way.
And found another way in there, and then he would have lost her, or she would have lost him for good because he would be like, I found another way. I don't need you, and I don't want to, But
he'd have held it against
if you
her.
do this, if you do this, we'll be together, continue to be. But you won't. You didn't know that, but
right.
I mean,
wrong priority. Your priority should have been make your girl happy.
Yeah, she was trying to make you happy.
Right.
Let
that be a lust to you guys.
Yeah. Don't do something just because you want to do it, and make your girlfriend hate you and resent you for it, and everything.
Listen to her. She's smarter.
Listen to her. Yeah. Guys should always listen to women more. Like, period. I just say that because you know how many times, just as like when I was roommates with Jackie, how many times I didn't listen to her, and then I realized later should have listened to her, and then she would always tell me, Jonathan, you didn't listen to me. Like, I'd be like, oh shit, I didn't, did I? Okay, whoops, and I mean, I make mistakes all the time, but could very well be avoided.
Yeah.
Just like this could have been, but.
So there you go. That's your first Sam Fuller movie.
Sam Fuller. Yeah. I feel full.
Yeah, he's really good. He's got some really good other earlier movies too. I'm sure at some point, if not on Criterion, then probably at least
Film Freaks or
Film
something.
Freaks.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure The Naked Kiss is also on Criterion DVD, which is the one he did right after, and it's another similar sort of psychological thriller. So
it does seem like Criterion will sometimes do a like if they did one Sam Fuller movie, they'll do another one too.
Yeah.
There you go.
So we'll have to see, but it's out there still on DVD. Criterion. I believe somebody else is redoing the Blu-ray, but either way, check it out. It's worth it. Definitely. This one does come with some extras on there. I don't recall exactly what's in there. I think there's at least one film discussion about Sam Fuller in general, and I think there might be some commentary, but I don't remember. It's been a long time since I actually popped that disc in. But
there's usually commentary.
Yeah, and I know it came with a little booklet that's got all kinds of stuff in there, and I didn't bring that with me with the box, but it does.
Where's
have
the
that.
Box? It's not here.
It's at my house.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's really really good. If you are a fan of Fuller, you need to have this. This is like considered his best film.
If you're a fan of Fuller, you probably already know this.
Yeah. But if you've never heard of him, or if you're interested in him, definitely check it out.
Yeah. I really was shocked, no pun intended, that about this movie because I didn't know where it was gonna go. I didn't know it was gonna be all about a sane asylum and stuff like that. And as I said to you while we were watching it does seem like it inspired like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or one of those movies that take place inside the we did one what was that? The Attic Expeditions.
Oh yeah,
you know, which was about sort of a insane asylum type thing, you know, and everything. So,
and it's right before Titicut Follies, I believe. I think Titicut Follies is like 66. So yeah,
that was another one.
That's a documentary about the real conditions, the real horrible conditions that people had to endure in mental health in America in that period. It's really opened up a lot of eyes. It was kind of sad. One of the saddest movies you'll ever see, but it's
great,
really well done.
And he wants me to watch that for Docs That Rock. Awesome.
It's great.
That's gonna be a tearjerker. All right. Well, this wasn't really a tearjerker because at the end he kind of got what he deserved in a way. Like,
got what he wanted, got what he deserved.
Yeah, like he got what he wanted, he got the answers, but he also got what he deserved because you play with fire, you get burned. You play with pretending to be a mental asylum patient, you're gonna end up being a mental.
He should have played Snuggle Up with Girlfriend. That's what he should have done.
Yeah. He should have just been with the girl the whole time. I mean,
be happy with your place. You've got everything you need. Why go for more?
I can't get a girlfriend, and this dude like just treats his girlfriend like crap, basically, you know, and everything. I mean, what is the
such is life?
What's the matter with this world? No. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you guys for checking this out. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Check it out on Criterion. As we said, it's not on Blu-ray on Criterion. It might be on Blu-ray on like Kino or one of those other companies or whatever. But go find it if you want. Hopefully it'll come to, if it comes to 4K, I'd probably buy it because I would hope it comes to 4K on Criterion, but we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, wait, hold on. I think it is a little crooked still. It's a little... Right? Just a teeny tiny bit.
Yep.
Right there? Is that okay?
Good enough.
I know, I'm a little... you said that last time and it's been crooked before. Alright. Drives me crazy.